Stand by. Something should be happening. But it's not. That's good. I wonder why.
Jinxed it.
I've jinxed it. Let's pretend that there's a whole sonicstate.com intro happening. And what I'll do is...
can we all sing it?
It's coming.
Yeah, let's do it.
Hold on, it's coming.
Oh, there it goes.
Ducking hell, there was a lot of ducking going on there. I've got it set up on my my mix, but there we go. Welcome everybody, Sonic Talk number 213, recording live today, Wednesday the 15th of May. Though you wouldn't guess it feels like blooming November here. It's sub 10 degrees and raining. My heating's on. I put a blanket back on the bed. Oh, it's just, I don't know, what can I say? Usually it's been a long time since I've moaned about the weather in this country, but I'm moaning about it today, that's for sure. Sort it out, someone. Gaz, can you do anything about it? Gaz Williams, songsurgeon.co.uk, co-host of Sonic Touch and bass player with the legendary Carl Hyde. Can you fix the weather, please?
Is that? Do you think it's a concoction of certain frequencies we can get the kind of clouds?
Could we get some theta waves going?
Maybe grooves, dancing, good grooves.
Yeah, dancing.
She could come into Bristol. I heard
the sun is bound to shine on that very day.
We need that. That's what we need. We need lots of just dancing energy people, and I think that'll make the clouds all move. So,
I'm liking your theory, Gaz. Let's hope it works. And I suppose with that sort of sideways link to Chic, we should then perhaps go to Mr. Rich Hilton in Connecticut, who is a member of Chic, amongst other things, as well as being the studio guy that operates and flies the machinery and does all the kind of important stuff at Nile Rodgers Studio, apart from playing the guitar, of course. How are you, Mr. Richard Hilton?
Very well, thank you.
Let's see.
And I am looking forward to coming to Bristol soon. It's not next week; it's the week after, isn't it? It's like it's 10 days from now.
Wow, really? What day?
No.
You're going to be?
I'm not here.
Am I wrong about that? I haven't got my
didn't
calendar open in front of me at the moment.
I didn't look at the date.
Big mistake.
It's like really. I'll tell you in a second. Yeah, it's 10 days from now. It's the 26th, Sunday.
Oh, do you know?
Sunday.
I'm in Australia. What? The other side of the world.
How far away could you possibly be, Gaz?
Yeah. Oh no.
Good for you.
Never mind, Rich. I'm sure it's not all planned that way. It wasn't like an escape route. Could I be as far? Anyway, Rich, it's great to have you aboard. Of course. Speaking, is this a private gig or is it a public gig?
But Bristol?
Yeah.
I believe it's a festival, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh.
It's like Gaz, isn't it? It's got a name and everything.
Yeah,
it's a name and everything.
Something. Love Cures Sunday, Love Saves Sunday.
Oh, wow.
Love exists on Sunday too, or something.
Oh, well, I'm going to try and get along to that, obviously. That would be great to see you. Hopefully I can. But anyway, Rich, thanks for joining us. We've still got some more. Gosh, we'll also say hello to Dave Spears, who's over there with his lovely .com modular behind him. Looking very dapper.
Do you want to see what I got for my birthday?
Oh,
and thank you very much, by the way. But check this out. This is cool, Prezi, right? I got this just to annoy. I brought
petrol implants? No.
Even better.
It's
amp. Drums. And you can select kits. Oh, hang on.
No way.
Yeah, there's a bit of scratching going on there.
Excellent.
Cool, eh?
What
I'm going to do Anita Ward's Ring My Bell.
What temperature do you have to wash it at?
I have no idea. My brother sent it over for me.
That's lovely.
I've just been... It's good because you can disguise it underneath clothing and stuff like I've been doing. Hang on, that's a bit caught there. Because I think you can rip it off. And you can just kind of... This clips over your pocket. So you can kind of walk up behind people. You can turn it up really loud and then just sort of walk up behind people and go...
It reminds me a little bit of there's a radio transmitting fart device that my daughter was very keen on. You have a little button in one hand and you take the device and you put it somewhere else, like under Granny's chair or, maybe near the mayor or something along those lines and press, and it comes up with some fabulous renditions. And it's just a really, really loud. It's like really brilliant speaker technology. So in a thing that big, it's very, very loud. Yes, I think my brother-in-law used it on a very dear deaf friend of his on a blind date. Which is really unkind, but everybody was amused in the end. I think it worked out all right in the end. Anyway, Dave Spears, as I said, geforcesoftware.com, as usual. And now we'll have Mark in the left-hand side, just because he's there at the moment. Mark Tinley, of course, creative thinker, member of TV Mania, likebeing.com.
Hello.
And, you had a hat on and now you don't.
I've taken it off. It was far too, I don't know, hat-like.
Restrictive.
Yes. It's given me an idea. I've got a spare AirPort, those AirPlay things. And I was talking to East about maybe doing this, putting like a big speaker in the boot of my car and the AirPort thing and a mains inverter and powering the thing up and having about 100 watts of things out there, and then we could send sounds to it with the iPad from the living room and watch people's reactions as they walk past the car. So we could have dogs in it.
People saying, help, help, let me out, let me out. Perhaps not so tasteful. In fact, that reminds me of a thing I used to do at the post office, actually. It was a jolly jape. But there was, at the post office in Bath, there are two doors that you went in, and in the middle is a kind of, letterboxes that you could put letters in either side. So what we used to do, me and my mates used to go down, wait for somebody to come up and put a letter and go, help, can you let me out? Can you get someone to get the keys, please? And they'd go, blooming hell. And they'd come round and see who's there, and you'd run around the other side and just shout from the other side of it, and they'd be convinced that there was somebody locked in the letterbox.
Brilliant.
Anyway, that was...
Love it.
We've got some topics to cover, I should imagine. We can't... I'll play a little bit of this, because I imagine if I play any more, I'll get busted. But this is the viral meme of the week, and quite rightly so. Let's see if it'll play. Here we go. International Space Station, of course. This is a fabulous piece of viral video creation. This has probably done NASA more good than anything. What they needed to do is combine this with some sort of a fundraising, contribute thing, and then they might recoup some of that, however many billion dollars it cost to put it up there. This is obviously Commander...
Control to make
I've got his name here. Commander Chris Hadfield. Doing his video up here.
Control to me.
Amazing sound, isn't there? I would have imagine there'd be lots of sort of hissing and whirring going on in the background for recording in a space station. I'm not going to play anymore because I know what's going to happen. YouTube will bust me and it'll just be an awful mess and they'll get this taken down, which we don't want. Incidentally, I should say, before I start the show, obviously iZotope are sponsoring the show, and if you stay tuned, you may be able to win a copy of Iris. I'm not going to say any more. That's known as a tease. Anyway, Chris Hadfield, right there on the ISS. A brilliant idea. I mean, I don't know whether he recorded it before he went there and then just put up, but just fantastic concept. How do they keep the piano in tune in space? Yeah, I'm wondering where they kept all of that stuff.
Well, why isn't there any visual evidence of the idea that they actually recorded it up there?
Well,
and I'm not saying that they perpetrated anything that wasn't true. I'm just saying I know they broadcasted from up there and they filmed it up there.
Yeah. I'm guessing taking like anything more than a light parlor guitar is going to cost an enormous amount in terms of extra payload. I'd imagine space is tight there. I mean, I imagine even one extra pair of underpants might be frowned upon in that sort of device.
That's not even... I know you could do it with an iPad and a microphone, but...
True.
It's just, I once had to record a vocal in the back of a tour bus that was running. And I can tell you, it's a noisy environment.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what it's like inside the ISS, and maybe it is quiet. But it strikes me as really unlikely that thing was recorded up there. And I'd like to see...
Maybe they use Skype, eh?
It was.
Yeah, and there'll be an interesting story behind it, but it's it's been going bonkers, hasn't it? It's a massively viral video and all of those things. But the one thing that I did think, this raised two subjects. The first of which, what's the most extreme recording scenario you've been in? Because, as Rich said, you kind of say in the recording a vocal in the back of the bus. Did it end up on a record, by the way?
I don't think it did.
Okay.
It was part of an ensemble anyway. It was
right.
somebody's voice being added to an ensemble of other guys.
All right, okay.
Well,
but it's
recorded.
it's an
bus.
interesting concept. I mean, let's just say, for the sake of argument, they did record it up there, just so that we can kind of run with the kind of idea that I've strapped to the back of this. The most extreme recording environment. I'm guessing Gaz might have some kind of thing to contribute to this. Just I'm guessing, or is he thinking? What about Mark? Looked like he's thinking as well.
Yeah. I can think
I can claim. Oh, sorry. Were you going to
Go on,
No,
after you, Mark.
go,
After
Mark.
You, Mark.
I was going to say I can claim various hotels around the world and sort of set up a recording environment in the Hotel Vendôme in Paris, which was extreme because I was there with my ex-wife. So I suppose that makes it extreme, doesn't it?
I don't know. That's hard to comment on, not knowing all the facts. But I'll take your word for it.
Rich's face says it all. No, he's not met my ex-wife either, actually. I don't know. I mean, I've tried recording outside in fields and things like that. I think when there's wind around, wind is one of the most extreme environments
really
you can
difficult.
record in because it really cocks microphones up and
It just
gets
smothers everything full
everything,
range,
yeah.
doesn't it?
But I have bought some lovely furry earmuffs that sort of sort some of those binaural problems out.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, so you've got like kind of wind guards on your binaural. So you've got those like massive.
And then it says "Sound Man" across the top, so nobody's in any kind of like doubt what you're doing when you're
Just
standing
the
there
thing to take to a bootleg gig, eh?
heading a generator at the boot sale, going like.
Excellent.
Actually, I've been in a mosh whilst bootlegging, so that's quite extreme.
Mosh pit.
At the front of a gig
the
in the
front.
mosh pit, yeah. So as a recording, it's completely scuppered by all the the noise. Yeah.
Doof. Yes, all that kind of stuff.
I might have mentioned it before. We set fire to an organ. This was considerable time before Diego did it. This was back in the mid-90s. We set fire to an organ up on a mountain on a big piece of corrugated iron, and we sort of tried to get the mics in as close as we could
Without melting them. I detect.
It's difficult. And we threw loads of petrol over the organ, so we didn't know quite just how much, how far the flames were gonna go.
Yeah.
What a sound!
So what happened?
Sound.
How were the mics?
The mics are okay. We actually did put sort of wind sort of some sort of wind thing on them.
Jeez, I thought that would make them more combustible.
It probably would have, yeah. But it was such a loud sound that the mics were actually, where we'd positioned them, were quite cool, actually. They were kind of safe enough, but what a sound, though. It was a reed organ, big reed organ, so as the keys started to melt, stuff would come through all the different, smoke would come out through all the reeds, and the sound just... Oh, we snapped off some keys to make it A minor.
Did it make it on a record?
It did, actually. Made it on a Rocket Gold Star album called Soft Eject. So
I think we need a link to the sound file of this, guys.
I'll see if I can find the raw burning file and put it up on SoundCloud, because it's an amazing evolving thing. And I mean, it is kind of extreme kind of recording, but wow, it's amazing. It just goes through so many phases. I love it. I love it at the end, just as a motor.
Different reeds. Did it play different variations of chords and things, or different?
It sort of did, except it happened so fast, and just this big, almighty, satanic chord comes out. It's just.
Wow.
That sounds absolutely awesome.
And it went on, and it went on, and it went on until the motor finally burnt, and then you can just hear it whir, and the whole thing kind of just comes down, and you hear this whir of the motor just getting.
Wow.
And it's a lovely kind of. It sort of ends it really nicely.
I'm liking it.
Yeah, but it is quite a fearful sound. It really is.
It sounds quite fearfully being described that way. What about you then, Dave? Most extreme recording? Can think of?
Well, don't forget, I used to be a kind of location recording engineer.
You must have a
for
fabulous tale then.
The worst one for me was on a... Actually, there was a few. There was one right in the Thames estuary where we were kind of jumping from ship to ship in a really nasty gale. And, of course, I had the big U-matic. It wasn't U-matic, it was Digibeta, but the big machine, before they were connected to cameras with the umbilical cord to the camera, and boom, and we were jumping from ship to ship, and I just thought this could go horribly wrong. But I think the worst one for me was we were filming a load of dredging in I think it was the Humber estuary, and they have these massive piles that they just sort of drive down into the seabed, and you climb on them. So the cameraman thought it was a really hilarious idea to make me record a load of stuff, and just left me there basically. And as I was kind of, and I hate heights, I really hate heights, and it was pretty high. And there's just this kind of big metal pole, you know, with kind of metal steps either side that I was up with this thing on my back and this stupid boom mic. And as I was kind of debating whether to plead for help or just wet myself, one of the dredgers came past and did that almighty, which of course I had hands on, and the limiters just kind of cutting in, and it was just horrible. It was really horrible. But I have to say, I always thought I was a bit of a kind of, I never shied away from a scrap. But when I was on a dredger with real men, I was kind of like, yeah, I now know who to walk away from a fight with, because these guys were huge, and they just live on those things for years.
Wow.
They're hard guys. But yeah, a lot of stuff. I did some filming in a 777 when they first came out, filming the fuselage swaying around, you know, recording all the creaking movements. There was no
in
seats.
flight.
Yeah. We took off from Heath. In fact, there's a brilliant story. We were doing this for BA, and obviously this is before kind of 9/11 or anything, but it was like when British Airways took delivery of these 777s, and obviously they were working quite closely in conjunction with Boeing over safety measures. So BA is saying to us, like, okay, so point the camera down the fuselage with no seats in, you can get all the sway, and we can see how flexible the fuselage is and everything like that. It filmed the engines. We're on the top of the hangar looking down. I wasn't comfortable with that. But the best bit was they asked us to go to the end of a runway and film the plane taking off. So
towards you.
Yeah, exactly. Hawaii 5-0 style, which is fine.
Until it gets
theory,
really close.
But it looks... Well, the problem is that when you've got a big digibeta camera on top of a tripod, from a distance, it kind of looks like a rocket launcher. And we lasted about 5 minutes before we were thrown in jail. The BA guys had to kind of come out and get us. I dread to think what it'd be like now. We'd just be deported to Guantanamo probably immediately without anything.
Wow.
But yeah, that was quite entertaining. So there you go. That's
pretty extreme. I can't think of it. I did actually have a project which was about Native American. It was a Native American narrative, and it was a friend of mine was interviewing lots of Native American people in situ and showing them photographs from a very early kind of interior photographic mission. I've forgotten the name of the chap. And they were commenting on, you know, what they were seeing, like, you know, the growing of the wild rice and tobacco and making maple syrup and birch bark canoes and stuff. And it was invariably massively windy everywhere. So it was in Wisconsin. So my job was to clean up all of that dialogue and try and make it usable to be played back in this kind of CD-ROM presentation. And that was very challenging because, I mean, wind just masks everything, basically. You can't really do much about it. So, yeah. But...
I do know that Carl recorded a vocal that made it onto one of their tracks. He recorded that on a plane from, I can't remember where it was from, but it was to Tokyo. I think the track is called JAL to Tokyo. And that was just the laptop mic that he kind of sung into. That seemed to work.
Wow.
I think they had to cover it up with all sorts of electronic noise nonsense.
Yeah.
That's the trick, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
mask it. Quite often, if I've recorded something and it's got a click in it and I don't want to have to, or I can't get rid of the click, I'll just put something percussive on top of the click. And it's so nice in a digital audio workstation. You just slide things around and stick them on top of things that you want to disappear, and they just kind of can't be heard anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Well, that was the first question that sort of came out of this. The second was, what could it possibly be the most expensive video ever shot?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a bit elitist, isn't it?
No one's going to match that, really, are they? You know. Well, it's funny you should say that. I did actually find this great. If I see, there's this chart of the most expensive videos ever shot, and it's sort of inflation adjusted 2013. Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson, the most expensive, $7 million at the time, equivalent to $10 million now. Madonna, Die Another Day, equivalent to a 7.6. Madonna, Express Yourself, 89, $9 million equivalent. Michael Jackson, Black or White, 6.7. These are kind of some pretty extreme amounts. And if you notice, there's almost nothing above $1 million in the last kind of 5 or 6 years. So obviously those days are gone. But there was a really interesting article on Gizmodo which was just sort of, was it the most expensive? If you spread out the International Space Station's price tag across all the astronaut hours spent on board, you come up with about 7.5 million per person per day, or roughly $90 a second. That sounds like a lot, but at that rate, a 5.5-minute video only runs at about $30,000. Given that the video has done more for the space industry than the millions in public outreach, but that's only the actual running time. That's not the amount of time it took to film. But I suppose.
Well, also you're basing it.
Sorry,
I'm sorry, Mark. You're basing it on a 24-hour day, and they're accelerated to how many thousands of miles per hour?
Gosh, I don't know. That's a good question.
So you've got the time play in there as well. So on a minute in space, traveling at 17,000 miles per hour may not be a minute.
Oh man, that's a really. So when you get the master tapes home from when you've recorded you've recorded all your audio out there, you come back and it's either you've got a very specific brief to it. It has to be 3.5 minutes long, and you get back and it's 9 minutes long, or it's a second long, depending on somewhere between those parameters. Could it be different?
Very good.
That's a really interesting. Probably a little too much for my addled brain to think
You're going
about.
to need some very, very, very good time stretch, aren't you? You're going to need like a really good algorithm.
Talk about elastic audio.
Yeah. NASA time stretch algorithm. That's
What I want to know is how much more money would it cost for him to sing the song outside? Because theoretically he'd have to be very close mic'd, because sound can't travel in the vacuum. So once you get outside, there's no, the sound would be weird, wouldn't it? It would be weirder than anything we've ever
Well, it would sound,
experienced.
and also it would sound like I haven't got any buckets close to hand, but if I was to say something, it might sound a bit like that vocal might sound.
I don't know. I'd love to
Because
know
it would
what
be
sounds like.
very close and very sort of,
Yes,
I mean, it would-
in ambience.
there would be zero ambience.
Because you'd have to have a helmet on. You can't go outside.
No.
Why
And
not?
playing the guitar, that would be impossible.
No, because there's no pressure. That's why not.
That's what that was another question that came to mind. Actually, was if you were recording in space, how does the diaphragm in the microphone work? Because there's you're in a.
Well, it's a pressurized.
That's true.
Yeah.
But with no gravity though.
But it also has to have a resonance to it, because even when it's floating, it's got a resonance. It wouldn't make much noise, but it would have a resonance to
That's a crap. I'm sorry, I've got to bring this one up. Echosonic says in the chat room, in space, no one can hear you strum. That gets the show title, definitely. That's a cracking, absolutely cracking. Thank you very much for that. That's a brilliant. Awesome. There you go, Dave. You're going to give us a little round.
Hang on, here we go.
Boom tish. That is awesome.
Have you seen the one where he performs with bare naked ladies then as well? Have you?
There's
talked about
more. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Well, they're in
and-
space too. Good grief.
No, but if you now, I'm wondering about the latency in that show. You see, they're doing it as like a kind of live performance with a choir and bare naked ladies, and then a big video screen with that Chris Hadfield guy playing and singing along live.
He should really be doing a duet with the guy from Metallica, though, shouldn't he? That would be the awesomeness. Have James Hadfield on bass,
Oh,
guitar. Is that him? No, have I got?
James Hetfield.
Oh, that's close enough. Close enough. I mean, if we're talking being sort of 35,000 miles away, then one consonant is surely close enough to cover my lack of education. We'll just before we get onto our next topic. That was a great fun one actually, and we got more mileage than I care to. Than I expected out of that one. I would just want to say thank you very much to our show sponsor, and this is the point where you can find out what to do to win a copy of Iris. So if I press this button here, the ad will play. It should play. Interestingly enough, it's not playing. There we go. iZotope, of course, are sponsors of Sonic Talk. Very much appreciate their continued sponsorship of the show. And what we're talking about this week is the Iris. This is the fabulous, basically, spectral synthesis. It allows you to take visual elements of any sound, up to 4 sounds. You can kind of take spectral selections of it, a natural intuitive selection, manipulate your audio visually, and you can apply synthesis control to your selection, layer up and morph new textures. You can enjoy warm, lush filters, delays, reverbs, choruses, effects you can add to it. Lots of sound libraries available too. Mix the sounds of wood, glass, food, toys, voice, altered and prepared objects. And in fact, as a recent one, there's been a modular synthesizer library as well. Basically, if you want to get hold of this, you can download a free demo of Iris, which I can thoroughly recommend. I don't think it's limited in any way. You don't get the full gubbins, but you've got a 10-day free trial, iZotope.com/Iris. But if you want to actually win, we have 1 copy to give away, one and one only. And what you should do is leave a comment below, basically saying why you should win it. And we'll pick the most amusing, relevant, worthy one, whichever. You can leave it in the YouTube comments or the comments for the show notes, which should be on the Sonic State site. And we'll let you know next week whether you've won or not. But thank you very much. Once again, if you want your 10-day or if you want your free 10-day trial, iZotope.com/Iris. So we seem to have dropped Rich. I'm just going to check there what's going on. I just got a...
No, I'm here.
No, we haven't. Oh, sorry, your video went... No, okay.
I took a bite to eat. So
that's okay. Well, I appreciate your selective use of airtime. Thank you much.
If you do see my picture disappear, that's what happened.
Okay. Not like you, Dave. Everybody's always saying, why is Dave Spears always eating?
I had an email the other day saying, yeah, why are you eating on Sonic State? I'm like, dude, that's my lunch hour.
Poor fuck,
anyway, right. So that's our next topic will be... that's a cool idea. The next one. Oh, this was awesome. Now, this is from... it's basically from Future Music, and I've seen this before, but this is essentially this Benge in his studio, which is, as you can see, an awesome collection of synths.
Okay,
and he's basically just showing how modular sequencing and patching works, and it's just brilliant. He starts off on the big Moog. I think that's a 55. Is that right, Dave? Is it a 55?
3C.
3C, sorry about that. And then he goes on to the ARC 2500, and then he goes on to the Surge modular, and then the Roland system. It's an absolutely fantastic video. It really is, I have to say. And one that's just kind of full of fun. And I've never heard a Surge modular. I've never heard an ARC 2500 either. But if you want to see what his studio looks like, there's a bit of a kind of a bunch of pictures here. It looks... absolutely gorgeous. I mean, there's the wall of modulars, and I think that looks like a Sony Oxford. Is that a Sony Oxford there?
I didn't look at the desk. I've been there, but I didn't look at
it. No, I don't think so.
It's not.
There's too much other stuff. I'll tell you what, Benge, more gear than sense. No, that's a complete...
No, he's done... Because I have to say, the work that he did on the John Fox album, I think is just brilliant.
He is... utterly brilliant, and a really ace guy to work with. Chris and I went in there and did a load of recording. In fact, some of it is on the Iris library, and he was a complete joy to work with. And that studio is just stunning. Once you've got over the kind of that's half a day gone, so he's quids in, really, isn't he?
Pay by the hour.
It's beautiful, and the Moog. The Moog is actually there's a lot of .com modules. I think that sequencer stuff.
Okay.
But Moog, it's just beautiful, and we spent most of the time discussing how much we pay to get our gear repaired and how often that happens. But it's just brilliant.
It's just there's the sort of the wall of loveliness. It's great. Dave, Rich, sorry, you had a comment as to what that desk was. Do you know what it is?
No, I don't. It might be an old Digidesign C24 Focusrite design, or it may, or if those are screens, then it might be a Euphonics custom desk. I just, because of the way the screens are, it could be even a Soundcraft. I couldn't tell if they were screens or if those were knobs.
They're screens. Yeah, they are screens.
Oh, there are screens?
Yeah.
Then I don't know. No, it's somebody's digital desk. I don't
Interesting. Know. But it just shows that the world can't have enough modular love, and that's. I mean, I'm hoping. I'm still trying to get this problem I have with most modular manufacturers or distributors, is they just never get it together to reply to any emails. So the communications are always very poor. But I have this idea to do like a week of filters or a week of what was the other thing? Effects, or a week, So I've got all five days of, and just do very quick, a bit like the Boss 30 days of pedals. So I'm waiting for that to come through. But there seems to be an enormous appetite for this kind of stuff, and it's just. I must admit, this was one of my. This is a very secret guilty pleasure. This one, I could watch it. I only watched it once through. I could watch it a load of times, but you said you've been there, Dave. But he's
just brilliant. We should go up there. Because he's really obliging, and we should just descend on him mob-handed. He'd really appreciate that.
I'm sure he would, even if he had a booking.
Well, who was I talking to? Was it Chris Barker? And Chris said that he's booked up pretty a lot now. I think
I can imagine people just want to use that stuff, don't they? Yeah, once again, that was a Future Music video. A great piece, actually, and it just looks like they got the best out of him. So, yeah, nice work. Have I tried? Tony from Make Noise says Sonic 1485 in the chat room. I've spoken to him a few times. Tony Orlando, yeah, he is a great guy. I'd like to get him on. But he's in America, so maybe we'll have to do something remote with that, but that would be fun.
The Surge modular is really quite something.
It did sound really nice, actually. I've never heard one. What's the characteristic of it? I mean, it had some sort of FME kind of patch going on there, so it's hard to tell what the pure oscillator sounded like.
Yeah, I mean, pretty good. I'll maybe send you through some recordings we did that kind of didn't make the final cut, because really brilliantly rhythmic stuff. I think, in a lot of these cases with the performance stuff and the Surge stuff and buckler stuff, I think the adjective I'd use to describe what they do is mental.
Wow, sounds great. I actually got a phone call from a chap. I won't mention his name now, but he's got ARP 2500 fully working. He's waiting for it to come back. He's just getting it serviced, and he's got some spare cabinets. And he said, "Oh, I'm local, like in the Bath area. Said you fancy coming along and having a look at it?" And I was like, "Yeah, hell yeah, I'd love to. That sounds great fun." But it looks insanely unfamiliar to use. That kind of.
It's actually in some ways easier than the Moog, because the patch chords are those sliders.
Okay.
So you don't have to kind of continually follow these kind of patch chords and go, "Oh, where's that one plumbed into?" Particularly, especially if you haven't got them color coded. Whereas with the 2500, stuff seems to make more sense to me. Particularly if you're used to that kind of VCS3 type matrix.
Okay.
Rich, did you work on? Because obviously you did this whole music stuff back in the. I was going to. I just folded my arms.
That's an everyday percussion accident.
No, but you worked on modulars and stuff back in your uni days, didn't you? Did they have 2500 then?
I was in a room with a 2500 once, but I never actually operated it. I was there visiting at the Boston School of Electronic Music in, 1976 or something. And they had, because ARP was a local business concern, they had everything ARP, including a 2500. That was the only time I ever saw one. And I didn't get to play with it.
Well, I'm hoping that the chap who phoned me and didn't leave me his number will get back to me, and then we could do something, because he sounds like quite an interesting fellow. And I'm hoping that I will get that. So, but Failed Music in the chat room seems to think he knows who it is, so maybe he can mail me privately, and I could get in touch with him and say, yes, I would really like to. Gaz.
Yeah, great video.
Did you watch it? You watched it?
I thought it was great. I mean, because I'm like a beginner to all of that world, and just as an introduction to like what the Moog modular sounds like compared to the ARP, compared to the Roland 100, compared to the Surge, and just him doing the similar thing. He kind of puts the same kind of modules together and does a similar thing, and it's just a great way of just really appreciating the differences between these beautiful machines. And I thought, wow, yeah, what I love, and he's. I think the thing about modulars that's really nice, it really does inspire people and kind of give people real, absolute enthusiasm for these.
There's still an element of the mad scientist about it, isn't there? Especially when it's a wall of that size. It's just kind of impossible to argue with. It's such an imposing thing. It's fabulous.
And it's great, because if you've got a studio that you rent out at X amount for the studio and X amount for the studio and engineer, if you've got a wall of modulars, they're always going to go, can we have the engineer, please? We filmed actually loads and loads of stuff in Benge's studio, and then when we went to hand that over to iZotope, I listened to it, and obviously we were going into the desk and recording from the desk. So in effect, what we'd recorded on film was just Chris and I talking crap all day long, and it was just banter. So much so, a lot of it was libelous probably, but so much so that I actually removed the audio track from the video stuff before I handed it over to iZotope.
Always best in that situation, eh?
I didn't have time to listen to it all, you know.
Just a few snippets. You thought, yeah,
that's enough.
Well, once again, that's the advantage of listening to the show live. Although we do try and keep our potty mouths and libelous glands to minimum, sometimes it just happens. So if you come and watch the show, I see we've got a bumper chat room this week. So thank you very much. It must be doing something right.
Can I just say, there's somebody said there's one on eBay for £6,000 now.
There is 2,500.
Yeah, and it's a scam. And somebody else says, yeah, but is it Nigeria by any chance? And there is, right at this moment in time, a Chamberlain M1 that is absolutely 100% guaranteed a scam that purports to be from Avon, but the shipping comes from Scotland. The guy knows nothing about it. And in fact, I've got those pictures of the same instrument because it was an auction done ages ago. So I've reported it, and anybody else, don't go near it with a barge pole.
Right. Well, thank you for that, that we should have. There should be probably. Well, actually, I think we did try and look into that when we used to run classifieds. We thought of the idea of running kind of buyer beware things, but the opportunities for people just posting horrible things about people they don't like is just so great that we shied away from it in the end.
There was some guy selling an AKS, and it turned out it was our AKS. It's the same serial. I was saying to Chris, wow, this is amazingly priced. And then Chris was like, yeah, scam. And then we went, hang on a minute, we've got all our serial numbers logged. It's just, it's ours.
Wow. That's
and I was busted by the police.
And then Chris said, why are you selling that, Dave?
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, great fun. If you get the chance to check it out, please do, because it really is quite special. I don't know whether anybody else has anything. Oh, sorry, Mark, I didn't come to you. I know you like to tinker with. You sort of tend to.
I mean, I was impressed, and that's all I can say about it. I started watching that video and thought, this is going to be interesting. And then he got another modular system out, and I thought, wow, he's got two. And then he got another one. Wow, and then another one, and then I'm like, thinking, oh, Jesus, okay. I mean, my only comment would be, please don't do sequences that go. Can I have one that goes? Put a gap in it somewhere because it makes it slightly more interesting. But
what do you mean, like Talking Heads? We're on a road to nowhere, perhaps.
Yeah, and then if you're going to spend all day creating things like that, release the bloody things. Put them on iTunes, because some of those evolving kind of sequency things, because it's analog, it doesn't just stay locked in and sounding like a never-ending, always repeating loop. It kind of evolves over time. So there's no reason why you couldn't stick that onto iTunes, and I'd buy it, actually. I'd definitely listen on Spotify.
You and Dave.
Artists AWOL, artists without a label, and release it.
Right. Well, that's a good top tip.
Yeah.
The next time I do some aimless meandering on the on the modular, I might think about that myself. Although I suspect it's not going to work quite so well. There was another one. This was the news of the new Rain book, which is this kind of hugely highly specified 17-inch laptop, 3 SSDs, up to 32 gigs of RAM, quad-core Extreme, and then some, up to 3 gigahertz, solid-state drives. It comes as standard. Designed for the visually inclined. It's got loads of I/O. It's just card reader, but some astonishing stuff. $2,500, which doesn't for 17-inch, which actually sounds. It's actually pretty. What am I trying to say? It seems pretty reasonable when you compare it to kind of the top of the range i7 MacBook, which is only 15-inch. I mean, obviously you don't get the kind of design beauty of it or what have you, and you don't get the Mac OS, although it's possible to. But it seems like there's not very many of these sort of super laptops in the world, although there are a few. And I just thought, I really quite fancy one of those. I like the idea of it. But Gaz, you got a 17-inch laptop. Do you find kind of lugging that around a bit of a pain, or is it okay if you got the right luggage? But we're not going to get started on luggage. Oh,
Sorry.
he's gone.
No, I'm here.
He's quiet.
Oh, can you not hear? Oh,
there
there
you
we
go.
go.
That's better.
Sorry. No, it's not too bad. 17, it's not too bad. I've recently bought a Mac Mini, and I'm thinking of getting another Mac Mini as well as a portable rig, instead of a laptop, and having a little mobile screen, or even using the iPad as a screen. So I'm just looking into other ideas as instead of taking laptops out, just largely to do with connectivity.
If you're in a hotel and they've got an HD TV, you can just plug it straight into it.
Yeah, a friend of mine does that, and sort of
That's a good point.
Yeah, HD TVs are everywhere now, aren't they? You know, huge ones. So yeah, so I think the Mac Mini actually, sort of, if you're going to buy a Mac, which they are expensive and maybe a bit overly expensive, but the Mac Minis is a good.
Yeah, I just recently swapped the ones around here. Actually, the show's being recorded on our slightly more well-powered Mac Mini, which is
Sorry,
a 2.7.
I've done this thing again. We're talking about a Windows Windows laptop. I'm talking about Macs, and I hate Apple. So what am I doing anyway?
It looks pretty cool though, and I wonder you might be able to do. It might be able to do a Hackintosh thing if you're that way inclined. But one thing that was interesting about this is there's no Thunderbolt on it, which is really surprising. And I would imagine that nowadays one would expect that this to start to be de rigueur.
Have you heard about the USB 3 version 2, which I think will be live?
USB 3 version 2. That's snappy.
Yeah, which is double the bandwidth of USB 3, which is at its current standard.
3 squared. USB 12. No, I haven't. But I mean, it's irrelevant because it's not.
Well, no, but what pundits are saying, it's just worth mentioning that that because the USB is just so widely adopted as a format, that Thunderbolt, it might actually scupper Thunderbolt's chances, because
it's a cheaper license.
The specification for USB 3, especially the version 2, you can do fast video, audio, all at the same time through the one port.
That's true. Of course. Sorry, Cosmic Lettuce. Yes, 3 squared is 9. Of course. I never got maths.
So just saying about Thunderbolt, it's just possible that Thunderbolt may not take off as anticipated.
Do you think it's being destined to become the Betamax of the format wars? I don't know. I mean, I guess because Macs have got it, there'll be a sort of built-in thing.
Mm-hmm.
There are, however, a few laptops with Thunderbolt. There's a great article on PCWorld.com which just sort of says what you can get. The Acer do some, Aspire S5. Let's see, I might be able to switch to that. Let's see, might be able to make it a bit bigger. Ultrabook, Lenovo ThinkPad Edge. They're all over about $1,000, but nothing like as expensive as these things. I suppose that's the thing about Thunderbolt. I mean, I haven't had the opportunity to use it a great deal here, though. Andy's got some drives attached to it. Rich, you use it a lot. I mean, is it worth singing and dancing about, or do you think the USB 3 before? I suppose it might not be so good for double the bandwidth on USB. Still, probably isn't fast enough for doing monitors, I would imagine.
I can't speak to the new USB 3.
No,
I can speak to the existing USB 3, and it's the promises that it's 10 times faster than USB 2 appear to be true. Thunderbolt works great for me. There's a really, really cool breakout box I saw recently by Belkin that takes a Thunderbolt connection and turns it into like 8 different connections, including FireWire and USB 3 and Ethernet and all kinds of other stuff. Yeah, it's $300 here, but and that's their retail. I imagine you can probably get it for less than that. But it's a pretty cool way of taking something like my computer, which is a MacBook Air and has a limited number of gazintas and gazoutas, and get a whole lot of intas and outas out of that one port.
Yeah, that's true. Just for comparison, I think it's about $2,499 for the Rain computer. And the reason I brought it up is because we posted it on Sonic, and it just got a massive amount. It was a really popular story, and it's just interesting. So there must be a demand, and people are like, oh yeah, I fancy the 15-inch, the top of the range 15-inch Mac is 2.7 gigahertz, Intel Core i7 Turbo Boost up to 3.7, and that's $2,800. So It's got a 512 gig flash, so I suppose that's something, and it probably runs a couple of monitors, definitely. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. I don't know. I'm just kind of I want a new computer that's really fast to run everything on, I suppose, because all of this stuff's starting to sort of creak a bit. And that looked cool. I wonder if they'd like to send us a few so that we can just evaluate them and have them products. The problem is with this laptop is, while it's got a great name, it just doesn't look like it's anything other than, you know, a bog standard laptop case. It needs to be pink or something so it stands out, and I haven't quite got that. I don't know what's on the back. Oh, there might be on sides. We can have a look at that. What does it do on the sides then? Yeah, it looks a bit normal. They need to brand it up. It needs to be blinged up a bit, I reckon. Then people will be asking. Anyway, that's my opinion. But everybody else here seems to be perfectly happy with their Macs. Well, maybe not pink. Okay, something. Gaz, were you about to chip in there? Save me from
I would agree. I would agree. It's a very dull-looking thing, isn't it? And I mean, you know, Apple always thrives on getting that kind of consumer love. You know, that nice thing you want it, and that you look at that and it doesn't look that special, but you know, powerful block. Powerful.
It certainly is. Right. This one was good. This is Jazari Patrick Flanagan. Let's see. That was video number. Is it? I don't know what it is. Oh, what's the time? Actually, we could do this, or we could do creative hearing reset, which I thought was quite an interesting topic as well, because I imagine we've all got different ways of dealing with this. Actually, I'll do that because that's possibly a bit more something we can all contribute to. So if I hit that button there. There's an article on Reddit, which is the Audio Engineering Reddit, which is a great resource for podcast topics, and lots of other things besides. This is submitted by Boozy2. After long days of tracking and mixing, I always get my ears burnt out, and I'll be shot. I can only track bands for a few hours each day because if we go too long, my listening skills suffer, and I accidentally end up performing and tuning editing errors slip by. After a long day, my hearing seems compressed and muddy. It can be hard to get the ears feeling normal again. What do you guys do to refresh your hearing after long hours of work? I'm guessing it might be, you know, if you're tracking and you're miking stuff up, you might be exposed to sort of quite loud volumes, but it doesn't necessarily have to be loud. Sometimes if it's just continuous, it can be hard. I mean, Dave, Rich, I'm guessing, you know, you're probably working in the studio day in, day out more than most of us. How do you kind of manage your ear breaks and what have you? Look at him there. He's digging away.
I just don't listen very loud. It's not even ear breaks for me. It's brain breaks.
Yeah.
I don't listen loud enough to need ear breaks that badly. I think Mark can attest to this. And whenever anybody walked in and tried to, I either had earplugs in or I left the room.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you remember that, Mark, but whenever
twisting
that volume knob,
I think Andy Taylor's got carbon fiber ears because I left the room when he was in the control room. It just
turns the volume knob until it stops.
Yeah.
I can only see the top of your head.
And then stands there nodding his head, and you think that must be hurting. It's like, yeah.
Well, sometimes loud music helps kind of generate because often when you're working on music for a long time, and if it's the sort of music that has an element of excitement to it, you lose that when you start to listen to it analytically. So sometimes if you turn it up loud for a quick blast, it kind of, does it still generate that? Does it kind of fire up? Well, I think maybe that's what people are trying to do. So
no, I do that. I do turn it up once in a while to check it, and I don't listen at whisper volumes either. But I don't. My ears don't get fatigued. My brain gets fatigued.
So what do you do? Do you just sort of take a break and go back for 10 minutes?
Yeah, do something else.
Yeah.
It's like, I think that's one of Brian Eno's oblique strategities. I think one of those cards you turn over says, go do something else.
Yeah, that would be all seven of mine. Yeah. That's what I do. I mean, because sometimes, you know, you could get to the situation. I've had this before. It's very unusual where I'm working on something and I can't solve a problem. And then suddenly it's almost like I have a physical reaction to being in front of the computer and I have to get away from it. Otherwise I'm going to cry or something. It's really peculiar. It doesn't happen very often, but I mean, fortunately not when I've been in front of clients or anything. But I guess it is quite important to take a break. I mean, this is the thing that we find. I mean, lots of people kind of, there's a chap who works there's lots of great comments actually in this thread that suggest one chap goes out to the car and just listens to classical music for 10 minutes and then comes back and keeps it nice and quiet. I know, Mark. How about yourself? I mean, do you tend to work in short sort of bursts of creativity? So tend to when you're working on your own stuff. What about if you're working for clients? How do you handle it?
Drink a bottle of red wine or two.
And everything sounds great.
This is why I stopped working, I suppose. I don't know. How do I do it? I mean, I had someone here the other day and we were recording something. And I noticed that after a while, my ears just ring really badly now. And I think I've got, the doctor called it something to do. He said I got a low something or other threshold. So I don't know what I'm going to do with sound now, because I've taken to listening to things really quietly when I'm working, and then I forget and I turn things up, and then I suppose I'm working in short bursts because I've got a child here to look after, and he goes, "Dad, shut up."
Well, that's an interesting thought, though. I mean, but the thing
sounds awful.
Having a limitation of I can only do this for a very short period of time, it's bound to focus the mind, and you're kind of going to discard things that are the more of a kind of creative cul-de-sac, because you haven't got the time to spare. So you have to be sort of more clear about an idea before you go, right, I've got 15 minutes to pursue that, rather than, I'll just tinker around with the length of the hi-hat note for the next 6 hours.
Yes, exactly. But it also rolls around in the back of my mind, whereas before I'd sort of start writing a song, and unless I finished it, I would be thinking, oh God, I'm never going to come back to that. But I've found myself coming back to things now. I've got this tinnitus problem. So I'll do it for a little bit and then I'll walk away, and then the song continues in my head and ideas continue in my head.
Okay.
And I start solving problems in my head and thinking I could come back to it actually and do that. So I've never really walked away from things and spent time away from things. I've always worked in long blocks and then ended up going down.
I was used to, but I started to do that. I think it was like the second time around when we started doing remixes around the turn of the century. God, that's terrible, isn't it? But the sort of second phase of stuff, we did a lot of radio mixes in the US, and it was kind of, we were both doing other stuff. I was doing sonic stuff and my partner was doing something else, and we just kind of went, yeah, let's get together tonight, see what happens. And it's like, nah, okay, let's come back tomorrow. And it was brilliant working that way, because there was just no pressure. You just go, we'll figure it out tomorrow. There's no point in sitting here and just making everybody feel rubbish and hating the song, so let's just go away and come back. I mean, if you've got that luxury, obviously lots of people don't. I know, Gaz, you actually, because you're doing mastering, you're still doing sessions, there are times when you have to sit there and do stuff. I mean, I guess if you're working on your own thing, you can kind of be the master of your own destiny, but how do you handle that?
With mastering, it's for me, if I listen too much, I'll lose my perspective. So I like to do an instinctive equalization thing. I like to do it quite instinctive, not get too bogged down in the technical side of it, and I'll just adjust it until I feel it's have you gone?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, sorry. They just all went quiet. I like to just do something quite instinctive, leave it. I like to not listen to music for a moment, or have a little chat with the people who are there, probably a long chat. Come back, listen to it a little bit more, and then just taking lots of small breaks. That's with mastering. Mixing is very different for me, but mastering, I have to, I call it the realm of infinite adjustability, and as soon as you lose your perspective, it's really hard to get it back. So maintaining the perspective is just absolutely crucial. So I say I'll work quickly, do something that's just quite almost like an emotional reaction to the music as I hear it.
Right.
Take a little bit of time out, come back then and listen to it.
I suppose if you're working on emotional response, you have to then come back and check, I suppose.
And check with a
more a reference. Do you come back to a reference? Because assuming your hearing's shifting over time as you're mastering that person's album, is there something that you keep coming back to and going, that's my benchmark, or that's my reference, or that's something I know that I know when my ears have shifted, then I need to shift this way slightly?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've got like a handful of references that I do come back to if I do feel I have completely lost the plot. But again, this realm of infinite adjustability, that's what I think we're up against, really. It's just,
Yeah.
what
you can
is
just do.
what is right? Well, that is different from that, but is it any better? You can zap.
Perspective is
The
very
rules
easy.
have changed because it used to be you've got to fit it on the side of an LP, and if you put too much bass in it, that's not going to work. And if you do this too much, it's not going to fit on there, and blah 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 blah. We don't have those rules anymore. We don't even have the 74-minute rule on CD anymore. I could write a 57-day long piece of music and sell it on iTunes, couldn't I?
Probably not, actually.
No, maybe
I
not.
don't. I think. How long would the preview be of a 57-day long piece of music? Is it at a percentage of the overall track, or is it just?
Okay, I'm sorry, I've over-egged the metaphor.
That's my fault for
It's tablets, I tell you.
Dave Spears.
Hmm.
How do you handle that kind of thing? I mean, I guess for you, music is probably production. Certainly, making music is taken around the space that work fills, so it's perhaps a different dynamic.
Yeah, that's kind of my own release. Yeah, so it's very different. Work audio. I have never been very good at taking breaks on anything, to the point where there's no doubt I've damaged my ears because of it, and actually relearning. I always have this thing, because obviously when I'm dealing with audio, let's say for something like String Machine or Tron, there is an inordinate amount of stuff to get to when we first approach that project. It'll be de-humming, let's say, de-noising, then retuning, and then cutting up, and then normalizing and trimming, and just making sure that everything's just so, and then you've got to listen to it in perspective. So it's a huge task, and I've never had the ability to kind of take regular breaks, which is really stupid. I'm very edgy until I've kind of broken the back of the work, and that's I'm probably approaching halfway through, and that's the first time that I can actually see the light at the end of the tunnel. And on some occasions, that's actually the only time where I can start to sleep at night. Other than that, it's just head down, go for it. Which is funny, because it kind of mirrors a quote that somebody told me a million years ago when I was in a sort of punk band, and that is, great music can be made on amphetamines, but great music has never been made on coke. And I think that kind of mindset kind of stuck with me, that whole very kind of, right, just heads down, go for it. Don't get up yourself, don't get into it, just see it as a task and do it. But unfortunately, that can wreck your ears. I'm not advocating taking speed, but
sure.
Just drawing.
It's interesting you say that. I mean, there is, isn't there, that moment when you can't really see how it's going to work. I mean, I suppose in some respects, it depends on whether you've been with the music from its inception, or whether it's just in front of you and you've got to kind of figure out the mix and kind of go. And there comes a point where you go, right, yes, I think I kind of got the shape now. I can build everything on top of that. I don't know.
The classic one for me was when I was doing. There are two really pivotal moments for me, and as a result of those things, I'm really trying to relearn my work ethic in terms of taking breaks regularly and doing exercise and things like that. But there were two real key moments for me. The one was where I was looping the VSM sample, so we're talking sometimes really gnarly sawtooth waves on headphones on a Saturday when I take my daughter to the swimming pool, and she'd be swimming for a few hours and I'd be working. And I really liked the idea of, I'd have this gnarly thing going in my head, no crossfades, just finding the perfect loop point, and then I'd take my earphones off, and the acoustics of the swimming pool against this really in-your-brain gnarly sawtooth was quite trippy. Now, I found that funny, but I think that definitely contributed to the problems that I have now. And the other one was when I was doing the Octagon pack, although this was spread out over, say, a couple of years, pretty much every evening I'd sit, because I had this dream that I wanted all of those rhythms to be absolutely in the same tempo, from all of the different discs, all had to be exactly the same tempo and all had to occupy the same space so that you could mix and match. And that was an absolutely epic task. And those kind of tasks, you go to sleep and you're still there. That's the nightmare, is that you go to sleep, you're dreaming that you're doing the work, and then you wake up and you still got it all to do.
Sleep the job.
Yeah.
That's horrendous. So when it gets to stages like that, you know that you need to break. But yeah, it's something that I've got to relearn.
Yeah, I used to get that as a kid. It started out when I was digging gardens. and I'd have like a massive garden to dig, and it was just full of couch grass, which is little white roots, and I used to go to sleep and I'd just see that all the time. You know, close your eyes and that's what I see, because I'd be looking at the earth. And you get, yes, those sort of repetitive tasks. I mean, I get the same thing if I'm trying to if I'm doing some coding or trying to figure out how to make the servers do something, and I have to kind of learn all this logic, and I can't. But sometimes, like Mark says, what happens then is there's a point where it goes, oh, I know, I haven't tried that. Of course, that might work.
Mm.
And then, you know, so and I think that's it relates to the idea of a lot of coders are not with you. You know, you can see you're talking to them and they just don't look like they're really focusing on what's in front of them. There's just something going on. They're continuing to work. And I think that's the immersive nature of lots of kinds of work. I mean, coding being one of them. I imagine songwriting, all of those, painting, and all those big creative tasks are.
I really think that they're intrinsically linked. I mean, I've kind of learned to see code and numbers as kind of poetry. I know that sounds pretty strange, but it is. You know, numbers is the kind of new art, and that's what I find really fascinating about when you take a really dedicated musician who, you know, hears music and everything, is constantly kind of thinking along those things. And exactly as you say with the programmer, I think the problem is when either of those two camps thinks that they can maintain that level of output over a prolonged period of time. That's when people get fried.
Yeah. Well, and also there's something very addictive about trying to solve a problem. I mean, just literally yesterday, I decided that my parents-in-law have a little place in France, which I've been down to a few times. They're getting a little bit unsteady on their feet. It's gravel. They want to put a path around the house. So I thought, I know, I'll use Google SketchUp and I'll draw a 3D map of it, and then it worked. It's bloody brilliant. I mapped the photograph onto it and then drew the thing. But I've just found it got to about midnight last night, and I've been doing it for 4 hours. And I thought, and my hand was cramped from using the sort of trackpad, and I just thought I better stop now because this is really silly. And that's the thing, when you get immersed in something, you lose time, and that's when you can probably do the worst. I think when you're outputting creativity, that's good because you just. It's coming out, I suppose, but when you're just sort of going round and round things, it's quite difficult.
There was one great quote I thought on this, which was when you feel like turning it up to hear more, turn it down. And for me, that's really kind of, I've been thinking about that all day. You know, the natural reaction is just to turn it up because I want those increased highs, or, you know, I want to hear more. I want to be more immersed in it.
I want it to be exciting again.
Yeah.
That's an interesting idea. That's probably very good advice, actually.
I'm still getting into that virtual room thing that Gaz. Why do I always do that whenever I talk about that thing? Because it's VRM.
The Focusrite thing.
Yeah, VRM thing. It's really good. It is really good. I mean, it doesn't sound exactly like you're in a room, but it's convincing enough that if you go in that environment, you can sort of play around with the placement of things, and you can turn it down. That's the most important part. You can turn it down and you feel you're in a room with quite loud speakers and you can hear detail. And that's why I tend to turn things up so I can focus in on the quiet detail, and then the loud stuff just is banging away at your ear and you kind of ignore it because you're trying to hear something quiet. But with that VRM thing, when it's on your...
I thought the VRM thing worked better for me once I got into turning it down. It's interesting you saying that.
That's on headphones, right?
As you turn it down, it gets more... You get more immersed almost as it goes down.
I suppose the thing about that is you get more. You can pick out more of the psychoacoustics, can't you? Because it is doing some weird stuff. I mean, I found it a bit odd myself, but I didn't have a lot of time to get used to it. But it's a great sounding It's got a great sounding headphone amp outside of that, anyway, right?
You do have to get used to it though, and at first, you know, you kind of want it like to be like a dog and jump through hoops, and it just be this amazing blow you away kind of thing, and you hear it and you think, oh. It just sounds very odd, but the more you use it, it is actually a very valid mixing tool. And I do think the mixes that I've done within it have translated very well. So, you know, I think,
me too.
Yeah, so but I'm surprised that we've not seen. I mean, it looks like Focusrite have not been incorporating it in their newer products. So I don't know if it's something that hasn't really worked that well.
Well, I don't know. I would assume if it's got any kind of DSP in it, it's probably not that. I mean, I know nothing about these things, but I don't know. Interesting idea.
I tried to work out what it was doing, and I don't think it's massively complicated what it's doing. There's some match EQ stuff going on, and then a little bit of time delay stuff going on.
And
Yeah.
I think there's some what's the pulse? Impulse responses as well. I think is going on there as well.
Exactly. So there's an impulse response and a match EQ. So, but the way I got used to it was I just literally went and found all the records that I like and played them through it and picked a pair of speakers that I thought sounded a little bit like the speakers that I've already got, and then I just kind of got used to listening to lots of music with it.
Yeah.
And then some things just don't work on it at all, though.
When you get used to it, you do have a very profound experience when you bypass the processing, and then suddenly you just think,
Whoa,
"Oh my gosh!" Yeah, and you
but
think,
the other one, late at night, I'll be like playing my guitar or something, and I'll be doing something, and I'll suddenly think, "Oh shit, I've left the speakers on because it just sounds so." And I'll take the thing off, and I'm, oh no, there's no sound in the room. It's all in here, and it actually, my brain's got so into it that I'm really
that's interesting.
in virtual space. So it can be quite a good experience if you stay with it for a bit.
And they're not expensive, are they? They're about 60, 70 quid, something like that. I mean, it's quite, I think we've got a review of them on the site somewhere. Rich, our guitars editor, it was one of the first reviews he did for us, and it was interesting, definitely. Very interesting.
I think the most important part of it is that wherever you go, you take your room with you. So if you work in that environment and you get used to it, then I can sit at my kitchen table and I can be in my virtual room, or I can sit in a hotel room and I can be in my virtual
that's interesting.
room. Or I could be backstage somewhere. I could be in a bloody gym with like horrible acoustics, but I could still be in my virtual room. So it kind of, you get used to that mixing environment like you would any other, and then it's portable.
Oh, it's interesting because it's sort of sold as a check your mix on lots of things, but actually it's more useful as just making sure that you get used to a particular listening environment and then take it with you wherever you go. That's an interesting idea. Yeah.
It is quite interesting though that you can change the rooms especially when you're at the end of a mix and then you kind of flick over to say maybe the living room with a pair of living room. Some of those living room things sound horrible. It sounds really, really horrible, and but when you listen to music that you know out of that living room speaker emulation, it sounds okay. So it does give you definitely a bit of confidence, if anything. And I was talking about this realm of infinite adjustability, and it is a bit about confidence. And when you lose your confidence in, that's your perspective, isn't it? Your confidence. When your confidence is gone, then it's time to stop and do something else, come back to it later. But and I found with that little VRM box, though, it has been quite good for my confidence. So I think that's a point maybe worth mentioning.
Cool. All right,
I'm going to say one more positive thing about it.
Good grief.
Yeah, and that is, I can't sing properly with headphones on. I can't pitch very well. And when I switch that thing on, it makes me think that I'm in a room, and it makes my pitching better when I'm singing with headphones on. So I actually think it's quite good for that as well. So there you go. It's been well and truly endorsed. Is that the right word? Or commended. Commend.
Super. Well, I think that's probably a good time to maybe consider leaving the show unless anybody has anything more to add. Obviously, Rich and Dave probably don't have experience of the VRM box, but it's worth a listen. It's kind of, obviously it works for half the panel, so that's got to be a good thing. So if you get the opportunity to check one out, might work for you if you've got the right sort of headphones and what have you. But yeah, that's about it. I think we can probably say our goodbyes. So I'll start with you, Gaz. Thank you very much for joining us this week again, and songsurgeon.co.uk, and I guess you'll be off on the road again shortly.
Australia next week, got Sydney Opera House, so that's something to look forward to.
Marvellous, that's going to be great.
Yeah. I'm going to try and do some little impulses whilst I'm there.
Oh yeah,
I'm going to take my little Zoom H2N, a little surround sound recorder, and I'm going to try and see if I can just grab some acoustic imprints of the place, because.
Have you got the right tones to do it with? Have you got the whoop, pop things? Because I'll send you some if you need some.
Okay, that would be cool. I was just going to clap.
Oh no! Well, you need to use a starter pistol because you need body.
Good luck with that.
Take it on the plane.
I can't imagine that would be a problem at all.
Excuse me, Mr. Williams. What is this? in your luggage.
Excellent. Yeah, best take it with you. Yeah, they might not sell them in Australia. Yeah,
It's for an impulse.
yeah. Impulse for the man who doesn't have to try
Is it
too hard.
kangaroo season?
Yeah, excellent. Brilliant.
Can I pop a balloon? A balloon is quite
Yeah,
an innocent
balloon
thing to
popping's
take.
all right as well,
Yeah.
but starter pistol's better.
Yeah, but much less likely to happen.
I'll
Well,
send you the impulse. I'll send you the tone things as well. Anyway.
oh well, good luck. A series of claps would work, says Matt M. But anyway, thank you very much, Gaz. And while Mark's it on screen, I'll say thank you very much to you as well. It's a great pleasure to have you aboard.
Oh yeah, you're very welcome.
And we will see you again very soon. Thank you.
Indeed.
And of course, our other two guests will have to speak to make themselves leap into the right window. It's like Celebrity Squares here. Well, there goes Dave with his. Yes, it did.
It worked. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave Spears, of course, G4 Software. Thank you for joining us. Yes, I love your T-shirt. That's brilliant.
Thank you.
But yeah, I don't think you better wash it ever.
But yeah, you can peel all this off.
It comes off.
Hang on, I'm gonna leave it. Yeah, and there's this sort of weird thing, right? This is like an umbilical cord, which of course then you hook onto your jeans. But I'd forgotten about that, and I went into B&Q earlier, and it was kind of traipsing around. It looked like I had one of those coats for nicking things, and that this had fallen out. It was quite weird, like shoplifter's paradise. I was dreading trying to explain it to somebody because they'd have just gone, "Get out, you weirdo."
Yeah. No, but you don't understand. Let me just explain.
They'd have been right.
Anyway, Dave, thanks for joining us. That was great. And also, while Rich is up there, we'll say thank you to Rich Hilton over there in Hiltonius.com. Off to wax a hottie, no doubt, in the studio. Rest those ears. Those solid gold ears there, Rich. And hopefully we'll see you in Bristol in a couple of weeks. That would be brilliant. Or 10 days. That would be fantastic.
I'd love that.
Okay, super. And once again, of course, don't forget, if you want to win your copy of Iris, well, first of all, download a free 10-day trial, iZotope.com/Iris. Thanks for their sponsorship. But if you want to win one, comments below, please. Just give us a good reason why you should be the winner, and we'll choose one that's the most worthy, stroke amusing, stroke whatever. I don't know what the criteria are. It'll just be an impulse selection, so you can do it from YouTube comments or just the news item comments. Once again, that's been Sonic Talk number 313. Thanks very much for listening.